this is not so different from the structure of a house. You know what I mean? Like how you make a house. It's not very far away from that. And so what we're doing here really is like building a kind of a great big prototype. And so in a sense, like the whole exhibition is like it's a load of sort of prototypes and experiments of things that, like if you literally might go and build your house like that. I definitely would, So yeah, and this is kind of trying to, as well. I think it looks great actually, all this structure. And I think I like that, because they and I think it's one of the things that I like specifically about that project is that it's such a kind of, it's like a very accessible project, like you can access it from at almost every level, because you can kind of, how can I put this? You can sort of intellectualize it, there's plenty to talk about in it as a project, as a proper grown-up project. But the language of light bulb in water is completely a universal language. It's like a language that absolutely everybody understands. And you can just access it as being, that defiance, but at the same time it's very beautiful, and it's also quite not repulsive like disgusting, but it's frightening. Like right. It is quite frightening. You want to touch it, and so it's very. I like that. It was a lesson for me, that project, actually, because one of the things that happens to you especially in college, I think it happens to a lot of people, is you start developing this sense that sort of things are only good if no one gets them, And one of the things that was such a good lesson about that project is kind of how rewarding it is in a way if people do get it, So yeah. Sorry, I'm just waffling now. You probably have questions.
No, that's the great part. That's the great part. One of your pieces that I'm most enamored of is Bridge.
Yeah.
Do you mind talking about that?
No, of course not.
That to me is one of the most exciting things I've ever seen.
Ultimately, what I want for that project is a lake. I want a massive lake, and I want a huge bridge that goes all the way to the middle of that lake. And and I want that to be in a fantastic place. And the news about that is that might actually be happening relatively soon, which would just be insane. So 3 years ago, I did a massive trawl of Asian countries, doing various exhibitions. I went to 5, 6 in immediate succession, one after the other. We went to Taiwan and China and Philippines and Singapore and somewhere else, Japan, all in one go, And so I was away from home for ages. And I first started thinking about it when I was in Taiwan, and there were all. I'm going to step back a tiny bit and just say that with all of these projects, there's not necessarily one absolutely coherent narrative about why they are the way they are. There are lots of motivations, there are lots of bits of history, and they all come together in a kind of an intersecting point, and you can't necessarily extract one bit and say this project is exactly that. So anyway, there were lots of reasons why I started thinking about Bridge. Part of it was about like the kind of excitement of being in these Asian countries, where things are so fast and where you see this incredible pace of development, like really incredible. So part of it was that, and me sort of looking at these, like the Chinese and the Taiwanese throwing up skyscrapers in 3.5 weeks, and thinking, God, that's amazing, like how ambitious they are and how sort of daring they are, and how unstoppable. And here I am, kind of fiddling around with lights and bits of furniture, and it just seemed all a bit. So part of it was me starting to think, actually, maybe I can push this much, much harder than I am pushing it right now. Part of it was about, at the same time, it's very much like an Asian influence thing, like at the same time wanting to find, or wanting to try and work on a sort of a language of architecture that was very light, if you know what I mean, like very kind of, it's hard to find the right words for it, but that would just be kind of like defiantly beautiful, like and really just fantastical and optimistic and hopeful and all of those. I wanted to have Because the other thing that you have to understand about the cities that are throwing up in Asia is that they're exceptionally ugly and bad. You know, the architecture is terrible, and then, you know, you can tell these things have been built in 3.5 days, and that you see the same skyscraper photocopied, you know, literally photocopied 10, 15 times, like huge buildings, just, you know, and you can understand why, because they only have to draw it once, and then there's just one there, one there, one there, one there, and so part of it was a sort of like, you know, like optimism, but also like taking a bit of their energy, and there were many other reasons too. But anyway, I started working on it, also because I started thinking about it when I was in Taiwan, and when I was in Japan I had to write a chapter of a book, and I really was struggling with it. Like, I didn't want to do it, it was really difficult, and so every time that I was supposed to write a bit of book, I got some hotel stationery and designed the bridge instead to kind of, you know, it's like displacement activity, isn't it? And it really, at that point, I had absolutely no sense that I would be able to make it happen, you know? And then I got back to England, and a curator called me and she said, "What are you working on?" And I said, "Oh, I've got this bridge." Because I had to say something. You can't say, "Oh, I haven't got anything new for you." So I'm thinking, "Oh, it'll never happen." Anyway, I'm going to cut all of the stuff out, because it all kind of happened. And I've done two now, one in London and one in Belgium. The photos you've seen have all been in London, because I haven't quite got around to putting the Belgian ones on my website yet. And essentially now the Belgian one, okay, so there's a province of Belgium. No, hang on. There's a huge river in Belgium, which is not one in Europe, a huge European river called the River Maas, which is what Maastricht is named after, the River Maas, right? And there's a lot of gravel extraction around it. And once they've done extracting gravel, they rehabilitate the areas as nature reserves and stuff like that. And so there's a kind of a possibility now that, as part of one of those massive programs, they asked me to do a proposal to put a huge bridge installation in. So it's gone in an amazingly short time. I don't think it's actually going to happen, by the way, because I put the proposal in and costed it, and it was, oh, that's ridiculous. So I'm not holding my breath for them to agree. But it's been fantastically exciting, because it's just been so kind of, well, very, very difficult, but also like really fast, and like really kind of, you know, people have really gone for it. So